Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is the Zane's Other View, and this one is about the Zimmerman verdict. I chose not to make my video immediately after the verdict because I wanted to have some time to really absorb what happened, to see what I had been able to watch for the last couple of weeks, and hear what other people are saying. People I met in the street, CNN, Fox, everybody. So I can get a good idea of what's really going on. And I'm going to make this very early and clear. The death of Trayvon Martin is terrible. I have a kid myself, and I wouldn't want to see a kid dead. I don't. But if I'm going to see this as objective as possible, taking out politics, taking out prejudice and racism that is going on, and there is a lot of prejudice and racism coming out of the black community. I'm sorry, there is. Either it's intentional or unintentional. It doesn't matter. There's a lot of anger and hatred right now is coming out. I'm not going to say there must be peace because it's already been stated and people are not showing peace in the United States. They've already had several people having some fights because of this. I thought my video should be about the truth of what really happened and the truth of the case. So I understand Miss Jade's opinion and I respect her. She has the right to feel the way she does. It doesn't matter if she's from the UK or directly from the United States. She feels that George Zimmerman should be in jail. She has a perfect right to feel that. Anyone else that has that right to feel. Anybody. But if you're going to see the case objectively without any type of anger or hatred or emotion, you may need to reevaluate that. Many people that have been making these decisions are doing it out of anger and hatred. And most of it has been spun by the media and the black community. I'm sorry. It's true. I'll give you an example. In the beginning of this case, Jesse Jackson Jr., Jesse Jackson, to an extent, and Al Sharpton, all were screaming for justice. But the minute they found out this was a white Hispanic, no matter how bad his background is, and Miss J gave a very good background, she did on Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman. You don't need to hear me say it. But when it comes down to it, the minute they found out this was a white Hispanic, they backed off because if you don't know how politics and black politics work, the most time that you'll ever see black politics is when black and white crime happens. As much as they say black and white crime is terrible and is wrong, that our companies or our organizations like the NAACP try to fight for us, they won't do anything unless they know they can get coverage and money. As much as many people say that's not true, it is true. I met people from the NAACP. And they said it honestly. We want to get something done. You want us to show something, or Jesse Jackson or Al Sharpton to come out, they got to pay. To go up on a podium, you got to pay them some money. Sometimes they do it for free. I'm not going to say they don't. But other times they don't. You got to pay them. They want to be in the media spotlight because the more they're actually getting exposure, the more people come in and more donations come in, the more money they get. And that isn't a lie. Unfortunately, a lot of civil rights movements are very corrupt, extremely corrupt. And the way this case came down, if this, and I'm going to be honest, if this was a black on black crime, this would have never had as much exposure as it does now. I'm not saying there hasn't been a black on black crime that hasn't given exposure. Mostly, it's done with extremely young children. It's very rare when it comes to this extent. And it rarely comes to this extent to an ethnic background from black to Puerto Rican. Rarely black and Puerto Rican are ever mentioned in this type of severity. And they tried to make George Zimmerman, who is a white Hispanic, who was adopted, white, 100% Anglo-Saxon white. German white, British white, Russian white, no matter what you want to play, whatever white you want to call it, they wanted to make him like that. This is what they tried to do in the trial. This is what they did in the media. But when it came down to it, the way I saw this entire trial is simple. We had almost 17 months ago a horrible situation that a young teenage boy was killed. But when it comes down to it, both parties were wrong. And I say this again, both parties are wrong. Because as much as everyone wants to say if George Zimmerman had not left his car, and I'll say it like this, if George Zimmerman got mixed, and I know people are going to say, no, he didn't, but I'm just saying it so you can understand. If he wasn't given mixed messages from the 911 operator, or was he left a car. That was his mistake, to go out to look, which isn't illegal to do, but that's not the point. The point is that, as many people would see it, George Zimmerman made the mistake of leaving his car, but Trayvon Martin made just as bad a mistake, and it cost him his life. Trayvon Martin, who had a cell phone on him, who called his girlfriend, who testified very badly, in fact, could not get her facts straight, and at the one point perjured herself on the stand. That's at least from what I can see from the trial I've seen. The point is that instead of calling his girlfriend, he could have called the police saying simply, 911, I'm being followed by a guy I don't know. Please help. Or he could have ran away. Or he could have knocked on the door of some of the witnesses that was in the area who saw the fight. He could have, even before anything happened, could have said, help, please help me, there's a man following me, someone call the police. None of that was done by Trayvon Martin. And I'm going to repeat this again. Trayvon Martin could have ran away. He could have knocked on the door of any of the people in that area and say, please help me, call the police. He could have screamed well before the fight started and saying, please help me, call the police. And then he could have called the 911 operator himself and saying, I am being followed. Please send a car, help me. Nothing was done in that respect by Trayvon Martin. He chose to follow what he knew. And Miss Jade had said it honestly, that he was also in some points part of a gang. And going from just gang mentality to a street mentality, which is the same as a gang mentality, what most black people in this country would do if you're being followed, in most cases, they don't call the cops if they have a cell. They don't knock on doors. Mostly women will. Not all the time. Because most women now that are black, most African American women, they have a tendency, and this has been proven, they do have a tendency to turn and fight. They don't always go and hide somewhere or run or call the police. They rather fight their assailant. So the mentality of the streets is to turn and fight. Who gives a damn what happens? And that's the decision he made, and it cost him his life. But no one wants to hear that Trayvon Martin is wrong. Nobody wants to hear that both parties are wrong. And I'm sure people are going to say, hey, he's just a kid, he's going to make mistakes. But that's the point. You're human, you make mistakes. And Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman made their mistakes. But when it really comes down to it, Trayvon Martin made the worst mistake of the two. Because he had options. He had a cell phone. He could yell. He could run. He could have walked to any one of the houses and begged someone to call the police. None of that happened. So when it comes down to it, both parties are wrong, but the one who got the shorter end of the stick, which is terrible, is Trayvon Martin. And how the media is doing this now, they want to prosecute this man again in a civil rights action, which they already settled by the FBI over 10 months ago. Nobody wants to let this go because, for the simple fact, if they let it go, they lose this. Most of the people that are fighting for this isn't just Democrats. It's the black organizers, the black people who are in the community centers, the black people who from the Acorn, as well as for the NAACP. Because now this is supercharged itself. They now have a reason to be involved again. You will see a Jesse Jackson Jr. get involved again. You will see an Al Sharpton get involved with again. You may see a Jesse Jackson, even in his old age, may try and get involved. You may see someone else, maybe Barack Obama again, who should have never stated anything. He's not supposed to. No president's supposed to state anything. When they do, no matter if they're white or black or Spanish, it's wrong. They need to stay out of local business. Their job is to take care of the country, not state that if this was my son, he would look like Trayvon. He should never say anything. If this was Bill Clinton and it was the reverse, it's still wrong on Bill Clinton's or George W. Bush or George Walker Bush. Herbert Walker Bush, I'm sorry. It's still wrong. So when it comes down to it again, Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman were wrong in their decisions. One is now dead, which is terrible. Another man who has been found innocent, which is good. But now will have to spend the rest of his life being hated by every person who's heard this thing. And most of them well, not every person, most people will hate him for it, and a good majority of them will be black. Because when it comes down to it, this is motivated by the black community. It's not motivated by the Democrats, not motivated mainly by the white people. It's motivated by black people. Because the most hated race is black people. The ones who hate us the most is ourselves. And I say this to anyone who's mixed like me, a mixed American, who has African American blood, or not. See it in this respect. See the real truth of it, that both parties were wrong. And it's terrible. But throwing Zimmerman in jail is not the key here. It's not. You want to change the law that's going on in Florida, you can do that. But this is both parties that were wrong, not just one. And I really hope people will understand this and not just explode the minute they hear that Trayvon Martin did something wrong when he's an angel supposedly in their mind. He's not an angel. He was 17 years old. He dealt with a gang. He was having problems with his family. And he was the one to attack George Zimmerman. It was proven in the case. In the end, Trayvon made the more worst choice of the two, but they both were wrong. So I really hope you see this, and I hope you enjoy this Zane's Other View, and subscribe and comment to my channel. It is hot as heck in here. If you like wrestling show and like wrestling videos, this is a place to come. I do wrestling reviews mainly. Very rarely do I do these reviews. And I hope people who are watching this of any ethnic background understand the truth. It isn't the point of Zimmerman getting out of his car. It was the point that both Zimmerman and Trayvon were wrong. And it's important to see that Trayvon's wrong, because if you just put it on Zimmerman, then you're not really wanting to find the truth. You just want to vent. And I'm sure people have the right to vent, but not at the expense of a man who now has to live for the rest of his life knowing he killed a kid. Because George Zimmerman does care to a point, just like anybody else would. So have a good day.